Imagine this. One morning, you wake up in your familiar room. Everything seems to be exactly where it should be until you notice that the clock on the wall is ticking backward. The light outside the window looks a little off, and in the mirror, you see yourself wearing a shirt you've never owned. You blink, and the feeling fades. But for that brief moment, you can't shake the sense that this world is no longer entirely yours. What just happened? Maybe you were dreaming, or your mind played a trick on you. But maybe, just maybe, you slipped through a tiny crack in reality, a fault line between parallel worlds. Science has a name for it, the multiverse, a place where every choice, every unrealized possibility, splits off into its own version of existence. A universe where you caught that flight you canceled, where you pursued the person you let go, where human history took a completely different turn because of one small moment. If that's true, then what we call reality might just be one thread in an infinite web of stories. And the walls between them are thinner than we think. Maybe in another universe, we've already learned how to cross the distance between stars. Maybe somewhere, a scientist is trying to open a doorway to another world, while another version of him stands here, dreaming of the same thing. But what if everything we see is just an elaborate simulation? What if the little glitches in our world, the déjà vu, the dreams that feel too real, the strange sense of not belonging, are actually bits of code leaking through from another layer of existence? Science has started to brush against these ideas. From theories of wormholes, black holes, and 11-dimensional space, to experiments at CERN, where some suspect that every particle collision might create a fleeting doorway between universes. And humanity, restless, curious, endlessly wondering, still asks the same question we've been asking since the beginning. Is this all there is? Or are we just standing in one room of an endless house called reality, where every door opens to another world, and behind the walls we think are solid, someone else might be looking back at us? When we lift our eyes to the night sky, every star, planet, nebula, and galaxy we see fits inside one familiar word, the universe. Since ancient times, humanity has believed that the universe is singular, that everything that exists belongs to one grand cosmic picture. But in recent decades, a daring idea has forced both scientists and philosophers to rethink everything we thought we knew. That idea suggests our universe might be just one tiny bubble, floating in a vast ocean of space and time, surrounded by countless other bubbles. Each one is its own reality, with its own physical laws, its own timeline, and perhaps its own forms of life. We call this concept the multiverse. This idea didn't come from science fiction writers, but from real discoveries in modern physics. One of its earliest clues comes from the theory of cosmic inflation. After the Big Bang, when the universe first came into being, space didn't just expand like a balloon being blown up. It expanded faster than anything we can currently comprehend. Some regions of space-time expanded faster than others, creating an uneven cosmic fabric. As a result, while one part of the universe slowed its expansion and cooled enough to form galaxies, other regions kept ballooning outward endlessly, giving birth to countless separate bubble universes. Each bubble, according to theory, could develop into a complete universe with its own history and physical laws. And because the process of inflation might never stop, the number of universes could be infinite. It's hard to grasp what infinite really means here. But imagine an ocean where every tiny bubble of water contains an entire world within it. If each bubble were a universe, then we, the tiny beings living inside one of them, could never peer beyond our bubble to see how many others drift beside us. We see only the thin shell around us, and we call it the universe. Another clue comes from quantum mechanics, the branch of physics that describes the behavior of particles smaller than atoms. At that scale, the universe doesn't follow strict rules but probabilities. A particle can exist in several positions or states at once until we observe it. The moment we look, it chooses one specific state, and the others vanish from our awareness. But what happens to those other possibilities? Do they truly disappear? Some physicists suggest they don't vanish at all. They simply continue in other universes, where the alternate outcomes become real. In this view, every event that could happen does happen, but in separate, parallel universes. In one universe, you're listening to these words. In another, you stopped after the first minute. And in countless others, you never existed at all. Reality, then, isn't a single road but a vast forest of branching paths, all unfolding at the same time. If that idea feels overwhelming, imagine that every choice made by every particle, every creature, every star creates a new branch. When you decide to turn your head, the universe splits in two. One where you turned and one where you didn't. All those branches coexist, layered over one another in space-time like a vast symphony, every note being played at once, though we can hear only a single tone. From there, scientists began to wonder, if these universes coexist, could they ever touch? Could there be connection points between bubbles, where their boundaries are thin enough for energy or matter to leak through? Some models suggest that when two universes collide, they might leave behind a kind of scar in the cosmic microwave background, the faint afterglow of the Big Bang. Astronomers have searched for these irregularities in the sky, hoping to find the first evidence that our universe once brushed against another. At the same time, string theory, another attempt to unify the laws of physics, offers an even broader vision. Instead of viewing matter as tiny points, string theory proposes that everything is made of unimaginably small vibrating strings of energy. The way these strings vibrate determines whether they become electrons, photons, or protons. But for the equations of string theory to work, space must have more than the 4 dimensions we perceive. Some versions require 10 or even 11 dimensions, 9 of space, 1 of time, and perhaps another hidden one where other universes are curled up, too small for us to detect. In that picture, the multiverse isn't just a collection of separate bubbles, but a layered structure, where dimensions intertwine, overlap, and sometimes touch like strings in a cosmic orchestra. At those intersection points, some theories suggest there might exist dimensional gateways, regions of energy that could, in principle, allow matter or information to pass between universes. Interestingly, ancient myths, folktales, and religions around the world have long spoken of portals to other realms, mirrors leading to wonderlands, doors of the spirit, or bridges between life and death. Perhaps, deep down, humanity has always sensed that reality has more than one layer. Modern science, with all its equations and experiments, may simply be following that same ancient intuition, trying to express in mathematics what our ancestors once told through symbols. But if every universe has its own laws of physics, what lies beyond those doors? A place where light stands still? Where time doesn't flow? Where beings are made of pure energy? Or perhaps a perfect copy of our own world, altered only by the smallest, almost invisible details? If one day we learn to cross the boundaries between these bubbles, would we be venturing into the unknown or merely returning to a place our souls once remembered? That question remains unanswered, but it opens a new path of wonder, one where imagination and science illuminate each other. If beyond the walls of our universe lie countless other worlds, what might they look like? If our universe is just a tiny bubble floating in the vast ocean of the multiverse, then every other bubble would be its own unique remix of reality, a version where the laws of physics might play out in completely different ways. In some universes, light might have mass, slowing down and thickening like a stream of liquid fire. In others, time might not flow forward at all, but pulse back and forth, a cosmic breath that expands and contracts. Each universe, then, isn't just another place, but another way of existing altogether. Imagine a universe where gravity is so weak that matter never clumps together to form stars or planets. No suns, no nights or days, no glowing skies, only drifting clouds of gas and dust, painting faint, shimmering ribbons across the dark. If life existed there, it might have no solid form, but move like intelligent mist, communicating through waves of light. It wouldn't need feet to walk or eyes to see, because in a world with no up or down, such directions would be meaningless illusions. Now picture another universe where gravity is unimaginably strong, crushing everything into dense, compact worlds. Planets no larger than a ball, yet heavy as solid metal. No oceans, no air, only magnetic storms and roaring pillars of red plasma. If life evolved there, it would have to be made of something harder than steel, with tiny, pressure-resistant bodies capable of surviving millions of atmospheres. For them, a single second might stretch into what feels like an entire day, as time itself bends under gravity's weight. There might even be planets where rain falls not as water, but as diamonds. In a dense, carbon-rich atmosphere, lightning and pressure could crystallize carbon atoms, sending glittering gemstones tumbling from the sky. The surface below would sparkle with oceans of reflected light, every raindrop a jewel. Meanwhile, somewhere else, the clouds could be made of acid, and rivers might flow with molten corrosion, carving endless canyons through stone and metal. Life there wouldn't fear being burned. Its body might be made of inorganic compounds, swimming through acid as naturally as fish through water. Some universes might hold forests of crystal, where trees grow not from seeds but from minerals crystallizing out of the air. When twin suns rise, the entire forest would glow, chiming with tones like glass bells. There, energy wouldn't come from sunlight or food, but from resonance. Creatures would live by vibrating in harmony with the rhythm of the cosmos, exchanging energy through shimmering sound. There could also be planets where continents float in midair. No oceans, no fixed ground, only massive landmasses suspended in thick atmosphere, drifting on mighty winds. The beings that live there might glide between islands with membranous wings or streams of magnetic energy. When they look up, they wouldn't see a moon. They'd see other islands hovering above, glowing like airborne cities. In some universes, light itself could be more than energy. It could be matter, pooling into glowing rivers that flow through the dark. When night falls, creatures might gather by those luminous streams, absorbing radiance instead of eating. And somewhere else, time might not move in a line at all. Every moment could exist simultaneously, like the pages of a book all open at once. Beings there wouldn't need prophecy to see the future. They'd see all of existence happening at once. There might even be a universe without matter as we know it, built entirely from pure energy. There, life would have no bodies, no boundaries, only waves of consciousness flowing through space. These energy beings could live for billions of years, shifting shape with each vibration. To communicate, they wouldn't speak. They'd change color and sound, weaving together luminous patterns like music across the stars. Imagine a world where sound has mass, where every word sends ripples through space. A whisper could stir the wind, a song could topple mountains. In that universe, silence would be the most precious thing, because only in silence could the cosmos rest. Or picture a place so cold that time itself nearly stops, where particles drift so slowly they seem asleep. A sea of stillness where all movement happens only in thought. Among all these possibilities, one question still captivates us. Could there be life in such worlds? And if so, what would it look like? In universes with different atomic structures, life might not be based on carbon at all. It could be silicon, or something we've never even imagined. A being might not need blood, water, or air. It could be liquid, translucent like glass, or radiant in the dark, the glowing soul of its own planet. Some beings might exist beyond the idea of form altogether. No bodies, no clear boundaries, just vast fields of consciousness. When two of them meet, they merge, sharing memories and emotions before drifting apart again, each carrying a piece of the other. In such a world, individuality wouldn't exist. All would be part of a single, flowing mind. Others might thrive in extremes we can hardly picture. On a planet where light never reaches the surface, creatures could evolve to hear instead of see, sensing their surroundings through waves of pressure. In a place bathed in lethal radiation, life might still persist, not by avoiding energy, but by consuming it. Every one of these worlds would be nature's experiment, a new variation of reality. In some universes, physics might play out like a perfectly balanced symphony, orderly, elegant. In others, it might be wild and improvisational, like a cosmic jazz piece. And within each song, there would still be one resonant note, the note of life, of awareness, of curiosity reaching outward into the unknown. If the multiverse is real, the wonder isn't just in how many worlds exist, but in how endlessly diverse they could be. Each universe is a different answer to the same question. What happens if the laws of nature shift, even just a little? A slight tweak to gravity, a tiny change in the electron's mass, a new vibration in a cosmic string, and reality reshapes itself into something completely new, something no one could ever predict. And if infinite worlds truly do coexist, it's hard not to wonder. Somewhere out there, could there be another version of our own world, almost identical, diverging by a single choice? A place where you're living a different life, walking a different path, loving someone else? Or maybe a world utterly foreign, where light flows backward and time no longer moves at all. These possibilities, no matter how distant, pull at something deep within us. They make us imagine, question, dream about what reality really is. But to glimpse those other worlds, to know if they're real, we would need a bridge, a way to step between the cosmic bubbles. And science, in its endless pursuit of the impossible, has whispered of such a path, a shortcut through space and time, where the distance between worlds might be no more than a single step. If parallel worlds truly exist, the next great question is, how could we ever reach them? If universes are like bubbles drifting in the vast ocean of space-time, then there must be a void between them, a distance that no human measure could ever define. In our own universe, even light, the fastest thing we know, takes billions of years to travel from one galaxy to another. And yet, there's a hypothesis suggesting that this immense distance might be bent, and instead of going around, we could go straight through. That shortcut, physicists call a wormhole, a tunnel through space-time itself. Imagine a thin sheet of paper representing our three-dimensional space. If you mark two dots at opposite ends, then fold the paper so the dots touch, you've shortened the distance between them without moving along the surface. A wormhole, in essence, is the universe folding space-time in that exact way. It doesn't break the laws of nature. It merely bends them in ways we can't yet achieve. The idea comes from Einstein's general theory of relativity, which describes space and time not as separate entities, but as a single, elastic fabric, one that can stretch, twist, or even tear under enough mass and energy. According to this theory, the heavier an object is, the more it distorts space-time around it. And if two regions of space-time are drawn close enough together, they could connect, forming a tunnel, a wormhole, a bridge linking 2 points separated by light years, or perhaps even by entire universes. In theory, wormholes could exist in two main forms. The first, called an intra-universal wormhole, connects two distant locations within the same universe. Picture yourself standing on Earth, staring at a star thousands of light years away. If a wormhole connected the 2 points, you could simply step through it, and in an instant, you'd arrive on the other side. No starships, no light-speed engines, no unimaginable distances between the stars. The second, an inter-universal wormhole, is a far bolder concept. Instead of linking 2 points within one universe, it could connect entirely different universes. In that case, a wormhole would act like an interdimensional doorway, a passage where matter, or perhaps even consciousness, could cross the boundary of one reality into another. If true, wormholes wouldn't just be shortcuts through space, but keys that unlock the doors between parallel worlds. But there's a problem, a big one. According to Einstein's equations, most wormholes would be inherently unstable. They'd appear for an instant and collapse immediately, too fast for anything, even light, to pass through. To keep a wormhole open long enough to travel through, you'd need a type of energy completely opposite to anything we know, something called exotic matter. This hypothetical substance would have negative energy density, meaning that instead of pulling space-time inward, it would push it outward, counteracting gravity and propping the tunnel open like a scaffold. The catch? Exotic matter has never been observed. It exists only as a mathematical concept, and we have no technology capable of producing it. Still, the idea of wormholes continues to ignite human imagination. Scientists see it not only as a theoretical possibility, but also as a tool to probe the very nature of space-time. If wormholes can exist, they would prove that the universe isn't limited to the linear geometry we perceive. Space could fold, time could shorten, and what we call far away might just be an illusion. Many speculative models have emerged. Some suggest that microscopic wormholes, no larger than subatomic particles, might constantly form and vanish throughout space, like fleeting bubbles of quantum energy. These tiny tunnels could connect points millions of light years apart, but only for infinitesimal moments, too brief for anything to pass through. Some physicists even wonder if such wormholes are what allow quantum particles to communicate faster than light, giving rise to the mysterious phenomenon of quantum entanglement. Others imagine colossal wormholes, vast enough for a spaceship to enter. In that vision, the entrance would resemble a swirling vortex of light, coiling in space. As a ship entered, it would stretch and slip through the tunnel of space-time, emerging somewhere else entirely. To an outside observer, the vessel would seem to vanish. But inside, the travelers might feel as though they'd passed through nothing more than a gentle current of wind. What makes wormholes even more fascinating isn't just their ability to shorten distances, but how they might twist time itself. Because time is part of space-time, bending space also bends time. A wormhole could, in theory, link not only two places but two different moments. If one mouth of a wormhole were to move near light speed, time would slow down at that end. When the tunnel opened, its two ends would no longer align in time, meaning, at least theoretically, that one could travel through time itself. Not just to another place, but to the future, or even the past. Of course, that brings up countless paradoxes. If someone could go back in time, could they change the past? Would doing so destroy the universe they came from? Some physicists believe the laws of nature would self-correct, preventing contradictions, suggesting that wormholes might only connect to parallel timelines where actions don't affect the original reality. If so, wormholes wouldn't be time machines, but bridges between alternate universes. Another intriguing idea is the Einstein-Rosen bridge, a theoretical wormhole derived directly from Einstein's equations. It describes two black holes connected by an invisible tunnel, one end consuming matter, the other expelling it. It's as if the death of a star in one universe becomes the birth of another in a different one. If that model is true, then perhaps every black hole in our universe is actually a gateway, and the matter and energy it devours are reborn on the other side. Even if wormholes do exist, traveling through one wouldn't look anything like science fiction. Inside, space-time would be stretched to extremes, gravity would fluctuate violently, and even a tiny disturbance could cause the tunnel to collapse. We don't yet know if any form of matter or life could survive such forces. With our current technology, even creating a stable atom-sized wormhole seems impossible. Yet, humans have always had a strange instinct. We keep searching for a way forward, even when that path exists only in imagination. The wormhole, in that sense, is more than a physics theory. It's a symbol of our desire to transcend boundaries, of space, of time, and of understanding itself. Perhaps, somewhere in the vastness of the cosmos, wormholes already exist. Maybe they hide within black holes, where space-time is bent to its limit. Perhaps every black hole is one mouth of a tunnel, and on the other side, light isn't swallowed. It's born anew in another world. And if that's true, if the gateways between universes lie within the hearts of black holes, then when we gaze at the night sky, every dark spot we see might not be where the universe ends, but where another one begins. To know what lies beyond that door, though, we must first dare to look into the abyss. Because perhaps the black hole, the very thing that devours light, is one of those doors. In the vast expanse of the universe, nothing is as terrifying or as alluring as a black hole. It stands as the symbol of the infinite, a place where even light is devoured, where time stops, and every law of physics melts like wax under the weight of its own gravity. Yet perhaps the most astonishing thing about a black hole isn't its power to destroy, but the mystery of what might lie within. Because maybe hidden in the heart of that absolute darkness is not an ending at all, but a doorway to another universe. Every black hole begins with a death. When a massive star burns through its final fuel, gravity takes over, pulling its immense mass inward until it collapses upon itself. The fall is unstoppable, compressing the star into something smaller than a grain of dust, a point physicists call a singularity. There, density and energy reach infinity. Time and space cease to be separate, and every law of physics we know simply breaks down. Surrounding the singularity is the event horizon, the invisible boundary beyond which nothing, not even light, can return. To an outside observer, anything that falls in disappears forever. But what actually happens beyond that line, no one knows. No signal escapes, no story comes back. A black hole is the universe's perfect secret, a mystery that can only be approached through theory. Some physicists believe that inside a black hole there may be no true center. Instead of an infinite point, there could be a tunnel through spacetime, what Einstein and Rosen once described in general relativity, now known as a wormhole. According to that model, matter drawn into a black hole isn't completely destroyed. It's compressed through a cosmic channel and ejected elsewhere as energy. From the other end, a white hole. If a black hole is a place where nothing can escape, then a white hole is a place where nothing can enter. These two opposites might be ends of the same cosmic gate, linking distant regions of spacetime, or even two entirely different universes. Imagine a brave astronaut deciding to dive into a black hole to see what no one has ever seen. From the outside, his crew would watch as his ship slows, then freezes at the edge of the event horizon, never crossing over. Its light would fade, redden, and vanish. But for the astronaut himself, time would move differently. He wouldn't feel stopped at all. He'd fall inward, as if through an endless moment. From his perspective, there is no boundary, only a journey through stretched layers of warped space. Behind him, stars would distort and twist, light swirling into spirals, every direction seeming to collapse toward the same point. Inside the black hole, gravity bends everything beyond recognition. Space no longer lies flat. It folds, stretches, and twists like fabric being wrung tight. Each passing second, time dilates infinitely to the point where the astronaut could witness the entire future of the universe in the final heartbeat of his own. And as he nears the singularity, everything, matter, energy, memory, even the idea of self, dissolves into the fabric of spacetime itself. But if the wormhole theory is right, perhaps instead of being crushed, he's transformed, pushed through a crack in the structure of the cosmos, and emerges somewhere else, a white hole, in a distant universe where new matter and energy are being born. In that case, every black hole in our universe might be a cradle for another. In other words, every time a star dies, somewhere out there, another universe could be born from its death. Another, even deeper idea suggests that our own universe might lie inside a gigantic black hole. When the Big Bang occurred, space began expanding from an incredibly dense point, remarkably similar to a singularity. Perhaps the universe we live in is the inside of a black hole belonging to a larger cosmos, and the black holes we observe could each contain smaller universes of their own, cosmic matryoshka dolls, nested infinitely within one another. If that's true, then black holes aren't just graves for stars, they're wombs for new worlds. When matter and energy fall in, they don't vanish, they transform, like seeds sinking into the soil to sprout again. Within that darkness, new space may be forming, with its own laws of physics, different from anything we know. For us, though, a black hole remains a door we cannot cross. Not only because of its immense gravity, but because of how time behaves near it. Close to the event horizon, time slows almost to a stop. Every movement, every signal freezes. To an outside observer, nothing ever truly falls in. Everything seems suspended on the edge. But from within, the falling traveler feels himself slipping deeper and deeper without end. Both views are correct because time there is no longer absolute. Some scientists call a black hole the point of no return, but perhaps it's better described as the threshold of transformation. For nothing that falls in is truly lost, it merely changes form. Even information, once thought to vanish forever, might still exist, encoded somehow on the surface of the black hole, like memories etched onto the very boundary of spacetime. The event horizon itself could be a kind of cosmic archive, holding everything that was ever swallowed, waiting to be decoded. On a deeper level, the black hole is a mirror of our own limits. Human understanding stops at its edge, where equations lose meaning. Beyond that, where light itself cannot go, there may be an entire realm of reality we've never known. Every time we see a black hole in the sky, we're not just staring into emptiness. We're gazing at a doorway, a possible bridge to somewhere else, where space and time are reborn. And strangely, black holes resemble us. They're born from light, live on energy, and return to darkness. They have boundaries, secrets, and the power to hide everything within, never revealing what's inside. But maybe, in that darkness, lies the deepest truth of the universe, waiting to be found. If one day humanity ever reaches the edge of an event horizon, sending a probe across that dark threshold, we might witness what no one has ever seen. The ship might vanish in an instant, or reappear somewhere else, in a place where light blooms again, where space curls into the shape of a newborn world. Maybe it would glimpse a white hole, the mirror twin of a black hole, spewing out the energy it once consumed. And in that moment, the questions of life and death, of beginnings and endings, might blur together, revealing themselves as two faces of the same eternal circle. Until then, all we can do is watch from afar, imagine, and wonder. Because when we look into the darkness of a black hole, we're not just looking at a cosmic phenomenon. We're staring at the final frontier of human understanding. Perhaps beyond that border of light lies the door to another universe, where the stars we thought had died are shining once more in a sky we've never seen. And if we can't cross that black hole, if its darkness is too deep, too distant, then the question remains, is there another way to cross the boundary between the stars? Human beings have always looked up at the sky and wondered, how far could we really go? Ever since the first telescope was pointed toward the heavens, we've known that the stars above aren't fixed lights in the dark, but distant suns, each with their own worlds, their own stories, and maybe even their own kinds of life. Yet even as their light travels for millions of years to reach our eyes, we still haven't stepped beyond our tiny corner of the universe. The dream of traveling between the stars, of moving from one sun to another, remains unfinished, stopped by one silent enemy that no one has ever defeated: distance. The distance between stars isn't just far, it's unimaginably far. If Earth were the size of a dust grain, the nearest star, Proxima Centauri, would be several dozen kilometers away. Even light, which races through space at over 300,000 kilometers per second, takes more than 4 years to reach it. With today's technology, the fastest spacecraft ever built, the Parker Solar Probe, travels at just over 1/10,000th the speed of light. If it were headed toward Proxima Centauri, it would take more than 40,000 years to get there. That's about 2,000 generations of human life. In that scale, interstellar travel seems impossible. But it's exactly the impossible that keeps our imagination alive. For the past century, countless ideas, wild, beautiful, and daring, have been proposed about how to cross the cosmic divide, not just with physics, but with pure human longing to explore. One of the boldest is the antimatter engine. In the subatomic world, every particle of matter has a mirror twin called an antiparticle. When the two meet, they destroy each other completely, releasing pure energy. Just a single gram of antimatter could produce enough power to send a small spacecraft farther than any rocket today could dream of. In theory, an antimatter engine could push a ship close to the speed of light, turning a journey that might take millennia into one lasting only a few decades. But antimatter is the most expensive substance in existence. Creating even a billionth of a gram in a lab costs millions of dollars and a staggering amount of energy. Storing it is even harder. Touching ordinary matter would cause it to explode. Still, the dream of an antimatter engine continues, symbolizing humanity's hope that one day we'll no longer be bound by the limits of speed. Another vision, gentler but just as daring, is the light sail. Instead of burning fuel, a spacecraft would unfurl enormous mirrors, sails thinner than a human hair, to catch pressure from sunlight or from powerful lasers fired from Earth. Like the wind filling sails at sea, light itself could push the craft, slowly accelerating it to a fraction of light speed. There'd be no fuel to run out, no engines to fail, only light and the endless dark ahead. That idea inspired the Breakthrough Starshot project, launched by physicist Stephen Hawking and billionaire Yuri Milner. They proposed sending thousands of tiny spacecraft, each no bigger than a postage stamp, into space, driven by lasers hundreds of times more powerful than the sun's light. These tiny travelers could reach Proxima Centauri in just 20 years. If it works, it would mark the first time humanity has ever touched another star, even if only through the faint signal returned by those little ships. Yet, no matter how advanced technology becomes, one greater obstacle remains: time. Distance can be crossed, but time doesn't wait. Even at light speed, the trip to the nearest star still takes over 4 years. And for destinations thousands or millions of light years away, humanity faces a heartbreaking truth: no one will live long enough to see the journey's end. That's why the idea of a generation ship was born. Instead of sending a single traveler, we would send an entire lineage, a moving world where generations are born, live, and die within the same vessel. Inside it, There might be forests, rivers, and cities. Children would grow up never seeing a real sky, never setting foot on soil, yet they would still call it home. And when they grow older, they would tell their children, "We are on our way to the stars." By the time that ship reaches its destination, centuries or even millennia may have passed. The first generation would have become legend, and the last may no longer remember why they ever left. Such a journey wouldn't just be travel through space. It would be a voyage through memory, through the deep fabric of time itself. Perhaps one day, humanity won't even need to send our fragile bodies at all. Maybe we'll send our minds instead, digital copies of human consciousness, flying through space aboard automated ships, crossing billions of kilometers without sleep, without breath, without fear. And when they arrive, those traveling minds might build a new civilization, free from the limits of flesh and age. Still, every one of these dreams, no matter how poetic or practical, runs into the same wall, the speed of light. According to Einstein, nothing can move faster. Every engine, every theory, every dream stops at that boundary. And that's what drives us to ask not just how to cross the distance, but whether we can ever cross time itself. Because interstellar travel isn't really about moving from one point to another. It's a battle against time, the one force that never stops, the one that turns every human dream into memory before it can become real. If we can't move faster than light, maybe we'll have to bend time to our will. Maybe we'll find a way to fold space, to shorten the path, to open hidden doors between two faraway points. The image of a ship sailing through space and time still captures our imagination. It stands for our yearning to touch the impossible, to rise beyond our own limits. Whether it's an antimatter engine blazing like a second sun, a light sail drifting silently across the void, or a generation ship carrying a civilization among the stars, all these visions spring from the same question: how far can we really go, and how will we get there? Maybe the answer doesn't lie in technology at all, but in the nature of time itself. Einstein once said that time isn't a river flowing past us, but a fabric we live within. If we could bend that fabric, pull 2 points closer together, perhaps the journey between the stars wouldn't take thousands of years anymore. Because maybe, to reach the stars, humanity doesn't need to cross space at all. Maybe we only need to learn how to step through time. And within that mysterious fourth dimension, we might finally find the answer to everything. Whether we can ever leave our universe, or if we're simply learning to see it from another corner of time. Time, as we humans perceive it, feels like an endless current, an invisible stream that ties the past, present, and future together. We're born, we grow, and we die within that flow, like leaves drifting down a river, carried forward without ever being able to turn back. But if time really is a river, is there any way to swim against its current, or even step outside of it completely? Einstein once said that time isn't a separate thing at all, but the fourth dimension woven into the fabric of space-time. Space and time aren't independent. They're threads of one vast tapestry, where every object and every moment is just a point on that cosmic cloth. That means the past, present, and future all exist at once. We just move through them in a single direction, the direction we call the flow of time. If gravity can bend space, curving that cosmic fabric, then perhaps time can be bent too, pulling distant moments closer together. In that case, the idea of time travel might not be a fantasy, but something written deep within the structure of the universe itself. Traveling to the future isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. In Einstein's universe, both speed and gravity can slow down time. An astronaut circling Earth at near light speed would experience time more slowly than someone standing on the ground. If he stayed out there long enough, decades, maybe even centuries, could pass on Earth, while only a few months would pass for him. This effect, called time dilation, isn't just theory. It's been measured, with atomic clocks, with satellites, and within the very fabric of reality. In other words, traveling to the future is possible if you can move fast enough, close enough to the speed of light. But humans can't survive such acceleration, nor carry the fuel for such a journey. And even if we could, that one haunting question remains: would anyone still be there to welcome us back? Because if time moves slowly for us, but races ahead for the world, stepping out of that ship might mean stepping into a future where everyone we once knew has turned to dust. Traveling to the past, though, that's where time becomes a nightmare of paradoxes. Imagine meeting your younger self or stopping an event that already happened. Every tiny action, every careless change could ripple through history and alter everything. When you return to the present, the world might not be the same, or worse, you might not exist at all. Scientists call this the grandfather paradox. If someone went back in time and prevented their parents from ever meeting, they would never be born. But if they were never born, how could they have gone back to do it in the first place? That infinite loop makes time travel theories as fragile as a mirror reflecting itself forever. To escape the paradox, some physicists suggest a radical idea: parallel timelines. Every time someone changes the past, the universe splits, creating a new branch. In one timeline, you went back and changed history. In another, you never did. Both exist, but never touch. In this view, time travel isn't about changing the past. It's about jumping into a different version of reality. If that's true, then every possibility, every choice we didn't make, might already exist somewhere. There's another version of you, living in a world where you took the chance, where you said the thing you never dared to say, where you didn't make the same mistake. Every time you whisper, "What if?" maybe that's the moment a new branch of the universe is born. And maybe someone in that branch is whispering, "What if?" about you. These ideas, resting at the edge of physics and philosophy, awaken something deeply human. Because everyone has wished, at least once, to go back, to say one more word, to make one more choice, to see one more face. In its most poetic form, time travel isn't about mastering physics. It's about overcoming regret. Perhaps that's why stories about time travelers have fascinated us for over a century. Like John Titor, the man who claimed to be a soldier from the year 2036, posting strange, eerily specific details about the future on early internet forums. Or the man from Torrid, a mysterious traveler who appeared at Tokyo Airport in 1954, holding a passport from a country that didn't exist. When authorities went to check on him later, he had vanished from a locked room without a trace. Then, there are the old photographs, showing people in modern clothes and sunglasses among crowds from the 1940s, or film reels capturing figures holding digital cameras decades before such technology was invented. Each discovery sparks the same haunting thought: could someone, somehow, have truly crossed the boundaries of time? Time, in its own way, remains the universe's most powerful and merciless force. You can't see it, you can't touch it, but it consumes everything: civilizations, stars, memories. Yet that's also what makes the dream of defying it so irresistible. To reverse it, to escape it, that's humanity's oldest desire. If one day technology opens a door through time, would we dare to step through? Could we face the paradoxes we'd create? And if we could change the past, should we? Because maybe the very pain we wish to erase is what makes us who we are. Perhaps time isn't our enemy, but another dimension of ourselves. Every moment that passes doesn't vanish. It just shifts into another layer of reality, where it exists forever. We aren't really moving through time. We're moving through different versions of who we've been. And maybe the dreams we have at night, those flickers of memories we can't quite name, are fragments from other timelines, echoes of lives we've lived elsewhere. If so, then time travel isn't about going to the past or the future, but about stepping into another version of our own existence. To truly transcend time, to go beyond even the speed of light, humanity might need to reach a higher realm of space, where time and space merge into one. A place where distance, direction, and even the ideas of before and after no longer mean anything. Maybe only when we learn to step outside the river of time will we see the universe as a complete map, where the past, present, and future are just different regions of the same vast reality. And perhaps then we'll stop asking, how do we return to the past? And start asking, where are we in the structure of eternity? For thousands of years, humanity has lived within a three-dimensional world. We can move up and down, left and right, forward and backward, yet we remain trapped inside a single layer of reality. Everything we feel, every limit we face, is defined by the space we inhabit. But what if this world isn't everything there is? What if, beyond the three familiar dimensions, there exist higher realms of space where distance and time no longer mean what we think they do? When we talk about hyperspace, we're touching an idea that almost defies imagination. It's not just space with an extra direction, but a completely different form of existence, one where the laws of physics could be rewritten. Hyperspace isn't inside our universe or outside it, but something more like a hidden foundation beneath it, weaving through and connecting all layers of space and time. If our universe were a single sheet of paper, hyperspace would be the empty space between pages, where every layer of reality floats. Imagine a two-dimensional world where creatures can move only on a flat surface, unable to see above or below. To them, the idea of height doesn't exist. If we were to push a finger through their world, all they would see is a circle that appears, grows, and then vanishes again, never realizing that it was just a cross-section of a three-dimensional object. Now think about us, three-dimensional beings. If something from the fourth dimension passed through our world, maybe we'd see strange shapes shifting and fading before our eyes, never understanding that we were only looking at a thin slice of something far greater. That higher space, the realm of extra dimensions, is what we call hyperspace. In it, the distance between two stars, even if separated by light years, might shrink to almost nothing. Like two faraway cities on a map that suddenly touch when the paper is folded, hyperspace allows the universe to bend in on itself, collapsing vast distances into a single heartbeat. If humanity could ever step into hyperspace, journeys between stars wouldn't take centuries, but just a leap. A spacecraft wouldn't need to travel across millions of miles. It would simply step out of three-dimensional space, move a short distance through a higher dimension, and reappear at its destination. What looks infinite to us might be only a gentle touch between two planes in hyperspace. This idea has long fueled science fiction, Star Trek to Star Wars, where travelers jump into hyperspace, vanish in a flash of blue light, and emerge in another star system seconds later. Yet behind that fantasy lies a deeper question. If hyperspace is real, what exactly is it? Some physicists believe hyperspace isn't a separate place at all, but the underlying structure of reality itself, the ocean in which our universe floats like a bubble. In this ocean, every parallel universe, every possible reality is just another ripple on the surface. When two bubbles collide, or when energy inside them fluctuates wildly, a tiny opening might form, a crack leading into hyperspace. Through that crack, energy, matter, or even consciousness could slip from one universe to another. If that's true, hyperspace might be the meeting ground of all realities, where past, present, and future coexist, and where universes overlap like notes in a cosmic symphony. In such a realm, near and far lose their meaning, because everything is connected through dimensions we can't perceive. Maybe, even as we sit here on Earth, billions of layers of space are intertwined around us, worlds stacked on top of each other, separated by only a single missing dimension. But since we can perceive only three, we never see them, just as a flat creature could never see above its world. Perhaps a being of the fourth dimension is watching us right now, seeing our entire lives, past and future, at once, like looking at a complete sculpture in space. Curiously, many ancient philosophies and religions also spoke of higher planes of existence. In Hinduism, they're called lokas, realms that overlap the physical world. In ancient Greek philosophy, Pythagoras believed the cosmos had hidden depths only a pure soul could sense. Even near-death experiences often describe a moment of rising above the body, floating in a weightless space where time and distance fade away. Could that be a fleeting brush with hyperspace? Not through the body, but through the mind? If humans could truly step into hyperspace, we wouldn't just travel farther. We would see differently. We'd realize that every star and every galaxy isn't an isolated island, but a glowing node in a vast web of invisible energy. Perhaps hyperspace is where all the universe's fundamental forces, gravity, electromagnetism, the nuclear forces, merge into one grand harmony. In that realm, light wouldn't just move, it would transform. Matter wouldn't just exist, it would dissolve into pure energy. But to glimpse hyperspace, we'd need a new kind of vision. Not with our eyes, but with awareness itself. Just as a two-dimensional being can't imagine the third dimension until someone from outside appears, maybe we too are waiting for a visitor from the fourth dimension to show us how our world truly works. Or maybe we'll be the ones to take that first step beyond the boundary. If that ever happens, It would be the greatest turning point in human history. Not because we'd finally reach the stars, but because we'd understand that every boundary was an illusion. There would be no distance, no time, no here or there. Everything would be part of the same reality, the universe observing itself through countless perspectives. And perhaps in dreams, when we feel ourselves falling, flying, or gliding through endless corridors of light, we've already wandered into hyperspace for a brief moment as consciousness slips free from the body. Maybe those are the rare moments when the human mind, unbound by matter, drifts through layers of reality where limits are nothing more than habits of perception. If hyperspace is real, then our universe is just one fragment of a far larger picture, an infinite ocean of worlds layered together. And every time we look up at the night sky and see the light of a distant star, the space between us, and it might not be light, years at all, but just a thin veil, a layer of space we've yet to cross. Some modern scientists even believe that the strange behaviors of quantum physics, entanglement, where two particles remain connected across unimaginable distances, could be evidence of hyperspace. Those particles aren't sending signals through space, but touching directly through a higher dimension where distance doesn't exist. If that's true, then hyperspace isn't fantasy. It's the hidden bloodstream of the cosmos, binding everything together more tightly than we can imagine. Maybe, as science advances, we'll find a way to open a tiny doorway through that veil. Not to escape the universe, but to finally see it as it truly is. And when that day comes, whoever steps through may realize we were never trapped in 3 dimensions at all. We were just used to living in our own shadow. Because this universe might not be a single space, but an endless sea of overlapping realities, and hyperspace is the current that flows between their waves. And perhaps the most astonishing part is this: some scientists have already begun searching for ways to touch it, right here on Earth. Not long ago, on the border between Switzerland and France, hundreds of meters beneath the ground, humanity built one of the greatest machines in history, the Large Hadron Collider, or LHC. It isn't just a machine, it's a doorway, a window into the invisible, where matter is torn down to its smallest pieces, and energy and reality blend into the same primal light that once filled the newborn universe. The LHC is a massive ring, almost 37 kilometers long, buried deep beneath the Earth. Inside it, tiny protons are accelerated to nearly the speed of light and smashed head-on into each other. Each collision releases temperatures hotter than the core of the sun, recreating the first billionth of a second after the Big Bang, the very beginning of time. Its original goal was simple but profound: to understand how matter came to be, to uncover the most fundamental building blocks of nature. And it succeeded. In 2012, the LHC helped humanity discover the Higgs boson, the final missing piece of the Standard Model, often called the God particle, because it's what gives everything mass. But alongside that scientific triumph came a quiet, growing unease. Were we playing with something we didn't yet understand? Some physicists studying the nature of space, time, and energy began to wonder if, under the extreme conditions inside the collider, tiny dimensional doors could open, fleeting cracks linking our universe to others. These hypothetical micro-black holes might last only for an instant, but in theory, they could serve as bridges between parallel realities. It sounds like science fiction, yet it comes straight from the equations of relativity and quantum mechanics. When enough energy is focused on a single point, space and time can warp so intensely that distant points touch. On a cosmic scale, that's what we call a wormhole. On a subatomic scale, it could be nothing more than a minuscule tear in the fabric of reality. Of course, most scientists insist the LHC generate anywhere near enough energy to open an actual portal. If micro-black holes do appear, they'd vanish instantly through Hawking radiation. But the idea that humans might one day create gateways to other dimensions still makes many shiver. Online, wild rumors have spread for years. Some claim that strange weather patterns appear over Geneva whenever the collider runs, or that mysterious energy fields ripple through the area. Others go further, insisting the LHC has already caused dimensional leaks, explaining bizarre phenomena we can't yet understand. Most of it is myth, of course, but it reveals something deeper: our fear of doors we don't yet know how to close. Because the idea of opening a gateway isn't just thrilling, it's terrifying. What if we did open one? Could we ever shut it again? At CERN, the research center behind the LHC, they're no strangers to such speculation. Standing at the facility's main entrance is a bronze statue of Shiva, the Hindu god of destruction, dancing in a ring of fire, a symbol of creation and annihilation intertwined. For many, it's a haunting metaphor, humanity reaching for the secrets of creation while dancing dangerously close to destruction. Each time CERN announces a new experiment, social media erupts. Some say they're punching holes in the universe. Others claim the collider is behind mysterious time distortions or the so-called Mandela effect, where millions share the same false memories. Science rejects these claims, but one truth remains: people fear what lies beyond infinity. And maybe that's understandable. Imagine, for just a fraction of a second, space-time actually bending, and a tiny crack opening somewhere in reality. No one would know what's on the other side. Maybe endless emptiness. Maybe a mirror world. Maybe something else entirely. The real question isn't whether we could open such a door, but whether something on the other side might see us first. Yet beyond that fear burns an even greater curiosity. Because every great discovery in science began with a question that terrified someone. When Galileo turned his telescope toward the heavens, he was called a heretic. When Einstein said time could stretch and bend, people laughed. And now, as CERN probes the structure of space and time itself, maybe we're living through the same kind of moment, right before fear becomes understanding. Some physicists believe CERN's experiments could be our first steps toward the higher dimensions described in string theory and M theory. According to these ideas, our universe doesn't have just 4 dimensions, 3 of space and 1 of time, but up to 11. Most of them are curled up so tightly that we can't perceive them, yet they may underlie everything that exists. If that's true, then each particle collision at the LHC is more than a burst of energy. It's a gentle knock on the wall separating dimensions. Every time 2 protons collide, billions of micro-possibilities unfold, and maybe, just once, a real door flickers open. For a split second, perhaps one tiny particle slips out of our universe and doesn't decay at all. It simply falls into another dimension. CERN may not have opened a literal portal yet, but it has opened something far greater. A portal of awareness. It has made humanity realize that the universe might not be a sealed box, but an endless web where unseen dimensions intertwine with everything we know. One day, when technology reaches even higher energies, humans might actually create tiny, stable windows between worlds. Cracks that stay open long enough for us to look through. And when that day comes, the question won't be, can we open it? But rather, what will we see when we do? Will we find a mirror universe where another version of us stares back? Will we glimpse the true architecture of reality, where all dimensions overlap and every possibility exists at once? Or will we see nothing at all, only darkness and silence, like the moment before creation itself? Whatever the outcome, one thing is certain: humanity will not stop. Our curiosity has always been stronger than our fear. We crossed oceans without knowing if there was land beyond them. We walked on the moon without knowing if we could return. And now, our next great journey may not be across space, but across dimensions. Maybe, when more powerful colliders are built, we'll finally open a real crack. A shortcut between layers of existence. And when the first light from another dimension seeps through, we'll realize that we've never lived in just one universe, but among countless universes, stacked like reflections of infinity. And to understand those doors, how they exist, how they connect, and why they open, we'll have to return to one of the most profound ideas humanity has ever imagined: string theory, where everything, from the smallest particle to the entire cosmos, is nothing more than vibrations, the music of an 11-dimensional universe. The world we live in, filled with particles, atoms, enormous stars, and the vast emptiness between them, seems like the entirety of reality. But when physicists looked deeper into the nature of matter, they found something astonishing. What we see is only the surface of a grand symphony, where every particle and every burst of energy is just a vibrating note played by tiny strings smaller than the nucleus of an atom. This is the foundation of string theory, one of the most extraordinary ideas the human mind has ever conceived. According to string theory, matter isn't made up of invisible point-like particles as we once thought, but of incredibly small strings of energy, each vibrating at a unique frequency. Just as the strings of a guitar create different notes depending on how they vibrate, in the universe, each vibration gives birth to a different kind of particle. Electrons, quarks, photons, neutrinos, all parts of one cosmic melody. What makes string theory so special is that it doesn't just describe matter, it paints an entirely new picture of reality itself. For its equations to work, for everything to harmonize without collapsing under mathematical contradictions, the universe must have more than the 3 familiar dimensions of space. In fact, it requires 10 dimensions, and later, in its expanded version, M theory, that number grew to 11. These extra dimensions aren't somewhere far away, they're right here, woven into every point in space, but curled up so tightly that we can't perceive them. Imagine a tiny string. From a distance, it looks like a simple one-dimensional line. But up close, you'd see that it has width, depth, maybe even a hollow shape, like a rolled tube. The universe might be the same way. Within every infinitesimal point of space, hidden dimensions could be coiled upon themselves, forming the invisible foundation of everything we know. Physicists have long struggled to describe gravity, the force that binds stars and planets, within the framework of quantum mechanics. Every attempt ran into the same wall, the singularity. It's the place where equations break down and values become infinite, like inside a black hole, where space and time collapse into something undefinable. But M theory offered a way out. Instead of treating matter as points, it sees them as strings or membranes, brains. And when that happens, no point can collapse because a string can never be squeezed into nothingness. In M theory's picture, every universe, including ours, might just be a 3-dimensional membrane floating in an 11-dimensional hyperspace. Each membrane, or brain, can exist parallel to others, separated only by a minuscule gap in dimensions we cannot sense. And when 2 brains collide, they unleash an immense burst of energy. Perhaps that was the Big Bang itself, the moment our universe was born. If that's true, then the multiverse isn't just a poetic idea, but a real physical system. A sea of countless universes, each a membrane drifting through higher space. And between those membranes, perhaps, there are contact zones, where forces and particles can leak from one universe into another. String theory, then, isn't only mathematics, it's poetry written in physics. It says that the universe isn't built from bricks, but from vibrations, and that everything, from light to gravity, from time to consciousness, is just a different expression of the same cosmic music. Imagine if we could hear the universe. Maybe we wouldn't hear sound at all, but a vast symphony of light and energy flowing through hidden dimensions. Every particle, every atom, every soul would be a note in that grand composition, and by living, we are resonating with the entire cosmos. And here's the wondrous thought. If every universe is a membrane, then the space between those membranes might be the realm of infinite possibilities. Somewhere out there could exist other realities with their own laws of physics, where gravity feels weaker or stronger, where light bends into loops, where time doesn't flow in just one direction. If you've ever felt that something in reality doesn't quite fit, a false memory, a dream that feels too real, an intuition that defies logic, perhaps you brushed against the thin boundary between 2 brains where the echoes of another universe ripple through our own. And if brains truly lie close together, then not only energy but consciousness itself might interact across them. Maybe we don't live in just one universe, but resonate through many at once. Every time we dream, maybe we're tuning into another version of ourselves in another dimension, where different choices are playing out. Many physicists believe that uniting quantum mechanics and general relativity, the 2 great pillars of modern science, can only be done through M theory. It could explain every force in existence with one simple principle. Everything is vibration. And within those intricate equations, the 11 dimensions aren't just mathematical necessities. They might be the true map of the cosmos, of which we've seen only the smallest fraction. If one day humans could see beyond the 5th, 6th, or higher dimensions, we might realize that every beam of light, every pulse of energy, is weaving through these dimensions like luminous threads, connecting everything to everything else. Nothing is truly separate, no object truly alone. Everything is part of one vast living web, a universe aware of itself. String theory doesn't just speak of physics, it whispers of philosophy. It makes us wonder, if all of reality is vibration, then could our consciousness, which is also a form of energy, be just another kind of resonance within that network? If so, maybe when we dream, meditate, or feel something beyond words, we're in tune with frequencies that belong to higher dimensions. Perhaps that's why ancient sages once said, "All is one," because they sensed, through intuition or spirit, that every difference, every separation, is only the result of different vibrations of the same essence. If M theory is right, it doesn't just explain how the universe was born, it opens the door to how universes might connect. Those hidden dimensions could be natural bridges, pathways through which energy or information flows, like waves rippling across layers of water. A vibration in one dimension might stir the strings in another, and what we call a leak between worlds would no longer be mystical, but an inevitable consequence of an 11-dimensional universe interacting with itself. So if these dimensions truly overlap, if there are tiny seams between the membranes of reality where light or energy can slip through, then perhaps, every once in a while, they really do. And in those fleeting moments, when the border between dimensions grows thin, maybe we have seen, felt, or even brushed against something that came from the other side of our world. If dimensions truly overlap, if our universe is just a thin membrane floating in an ocean of countless realities, then maybe sometimes those membranes brush against each other. And in that fleeting moment of contact, the things we call supernatural, the ones that defy the laws of physics, could simply be traces of that cosmic interference. We give them many names: ghosts, spirits, poltergeists, time slips, the Mandela effect. From a scientific perspective, they're nonsense. But from the view of an 11-dimensional universe, they might be cracks in the surface of reality, tiny leaks where energy from another dimension seeps into ours. Let's begin where history and mystery intertwine. Gettysburg, the most famous battlefield of the American Civil War. Thousands died there in a single day, a day so drenched in blood that the ground turned red and the air thickened with the smell of gunpowder and despair. Yet more than a century later, visitors still report strange encounters. Footsteps echoing across empty fields, distant drums rolling through the night, soldiers' figures appearing in the fog only to fade into nothing. Some say these are memories burned into space-time, replaying like scorched film whenever the conditions are right. But through the lens of higher dimensions, another idea emerges. Maybe those aren't echoes of the past, but collisions of timelines. A moment when two parallel realities, one peaceful and one still at war, slip across each other, leaving behind the whispers of souls that never left the earth. It's not only battlefields that seem to fracture. Sometimes, even quiet towns bear those same rips in reality. In 1971, in the small Spanish village of Belmez de la Moraleda, a woman discovered a human face appearing in the cement floor of her kitchen. At first, it was faint, just an outline. Then it sharpened, revealing eyes, a nose, a mouth, and an expression that seemed almost aware. When the floor was removed, new faces appeared weeks later. Decades passed, yet the Belmez faces kept returning, baffling scientists and mystics alike. Some called it a hoax. Others said trapped souls were trying to communicate. But another possibility arose, that these faces were imprints from another dimension, where energy, images, even fragments of information leaked into our layer of space, forming patterns the human brain interprets as faces. Like two radio frequencies overlapping, sometimes two realities briefly merge, producing images that don't belong. Time slips carry the same eerie signature. People describe driving down familiar roads, only to realize that hours have vanished from the clock. Pilots, explorers, even scientists have reported flying through strange fog zones where time seemed to stretch or collapse. In places like the Bermuda Triangle, Rendlesham Forest, or the Hudson Bay, countless reports tell the same story. Clocks spin wildly, compasses fail, instruments die. If time is a dimension of space, perhaps in those regions, layers of space-time fold together. The pilot doesn't vanish, he just slides into another timeline, like stepping into a different room in a multi-dimensional house. When he returns, time in his world has flowed differently, like two clocks ticking at different speeds. And then there's the phenomenon that captivated the world, the Mandela effect. Millions remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s, even though he actually lived until 2013. Others swear that the Monopoly Man wore a monocle, or that the Berenstain Bears was spelled differently. These memories are so consistent, it's hard to believe they're all mistakes. If memory is the record of experience through time, maybe those people, just for an instant, passed through a different timeline, one where things truly happened as they recall. When they returned, their minds carried data from that parallel universe, making them believe reality had changed. On a quantum level, perhaps tiny shifts in the fabric of space-time cause two universes to overlap, merging a few fragments of information, like files accidentally blended in the vast system of the cosmos. Of course, all this sits beyond the reach of proven science. Yet it's undeniable that physics is inching closer to the idea of dimensional leakage. Quantum mechanics has already shown that particles can exist in multiple states at once, and that only when observed do they choose a specific reality. If consciousness can shape what we observe, then perhaps awareness or even strong emotion might act as a bridge between worlds. Maybe when humans experience extreme emotion, terror, grief, or longing, the mind sends out vibrations powerful enough to cross the boundaries of space, leaving an imprint on the neighboring dimensions. That could explain why places touched by tragedy are often haunted. That energy never vanished, it just echoes through the layers beyond our sight. If so, what we call ghosts might not be spirits at all, but residual shadows of another reality, or reflections from a parallel universe brushing against ours. Like two mirrors facing each other, light from one bounces endlessly into the other, creating infinite reflections. Perhaps we are glimpsing our own reflection from another dimension, and because we can't comprehend it, we label it supernatural. When these dimensional collisions occur, they last only a moment, a fleeting shadow, an unexplained sound, an object that moves when no one's there. But for the witness, it's proof that reality isn't sealed tight. Between the layers of existence, there are gaps where memory, energy, and even the soul can drift back and forth, like ripples on the surface of water. The deeper we think, the clearer it becomes. The line between science and the supernatural is thinner than we imagine. One seeks truth through equations, the other through intuition, yet both touch the same hidden structure of reality. Maybe, in an 11-dimensional world, the supernatural is simply the natural that we're not built to understand. Like a fish in a pond unable to imagine the world above the surface, we only see the faint ripples of what happens beyond our layer of space. And sometimes those crossings leave more than sounds or visions. They bring experiences. Moments when human consciousness slips free from the body, wandering into another realm. When we see something beyond biology, touching a place where time and fear no longer exist. Perhaps our glimpse into the other world doesn't only happen when dimensions collide, but also when we stand on the threshold of this one. In those near-death moments, when the line between life and death grows thin, we may truly see what lies beyond the veil of reality. In that fleeting moment between life and death, many people say they've seen a light. Not the light of a lamp, nor the light of the sun, but something entirely different. A strange, gentle, and deeply warm glow that dissolves every trace of fear. They describe it as a light that doesn't just illuminate space, but reaches into the soul itself, filling it with an absolute peace, as if every pain, worry, and heavy memory has been washed away. They call it the light at the end of the tunnel, an image tied to countless near-death experiences that humanity has recorded for thousands of years. Some people say they saw themselves leaving their body, floating above the operating table, watching doctors trying to save them. They could hear voices, the rush of heartbeats, even describe in detail what was happening while they were considered clinically dead. Others described traveling through a long, dark tunnel, not frightening, but calm, because at the end of it, a radiant light was waiting, a light that seemed to know, to love, and to listen. Some encountered loved ones who had passed away or felt the presence of a being communicating without words. And then, in an instant, they were pulled back into their bodies, their heartbeats, their tears, carrying with them the memory of a place no language can truly describe. Science has long tried to explain this mystery. Doctors believe that near-death experiences, or NDEs, are caused by a lack of oxygen in the brain, triggering bursts of chaotic electrical signals that create illusions of light and motion. Some psychologists suggest it's the brain's way of protecting us from the fear of death, by crafting a comforting illusion, helping us let go in peace. The visions of tunnels, lights, and waiting loved ones might just be symbols the brain reconstructs as consciousness fades. And yet, there are cases that seem to defy every explanation. People whose hearts stopped for several minutes, with no measurable brain activity, later described their surroundings in vivid detail. They recalled exact conversations in the operating room, even events happening out in the hallway. Some described places that weren't the hospital at all, spaces beyond time and matter, where they didn't just see, but knew everything. Across these stories, a striking theme appears. A feeling of merging with something vast. The sense that the self, the I, has dissolved into an ocean of awareness. No borders, no matter, no time. Every question has an answer, not through words, but through direct understanding, as if the human mind had melted into the rhythm of the universe itself. Viewed through the lens of multidimensional physics, another idea emerges. Perhaps, in the instant before death, when the brain shuts down and biological processes collapse, consciousness, a form of pure energy, slips free from the limits of three-dimensional space and time. It may shift into another layer of reality, where time doesn't flow, where all memories and experiences coexist. The light they see might be the boundary between two realities, the point where consciousness briefly touches a higher field of energy, a dimension beyond human perception. If the universe truly has 11 dimensions, as M-theory suggests, maybe human consciousness operates only within 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time, while the others remain hidden. When life ends, the material filter falls away, and the energy of awareness is free to move through those unseen dimensions. In that sense, death might not be an end at all, but a dimensional shift, like a musical note leaving its octave to resonate at a higher tone. Many who have come close to death say they didn't want to return. They felt that place was more real, more beautiful than this one. The light, though formless, seemed to radiate love. Not human love, but something absolute, unconditional, and all-encompassing. When asked what it was, they simply said, "I knew I was home." That word home makes one wonder. Could it be that beyond the veil of life lies the very place we came from before we were born? Maybe consciousness isn't created by the body at all, but merely passes through it, like a traveler stopping at an inn. When the body fails, the traveler moves on, not into nothingness, but back to their own realm. A realm religion might call the soul, and physics might one day call another dimension of space-time. Some even describe meeting a being of light who asked them one simple question: "What have you learned?" Not from books, but about compassion, forgiveness, and love. It seems that on the other side, the value of existence isn't measured by success or knowledge, but by the vibration of the soul, the subtle energy we create with every act of kindness. If that's true, then near-death experiences aren't just biological events, but brief encounters between 2 layers of reality. When consciousness leaves the body, it doesn't vanish. It shifts frequency, like a sound wave moving beyond what the human ear can hear. And in that shift, we might see another world. Not with our eyes, but with our very being. Modern science is starting to approach this question with a more open mind. Some neuroscientists now believe that consciousness might not originate in the brain, but exist as an independent field of energy, with the body acting as a receiver. When the receiver breaks, the signal isn't lost, it simply disconnects. That possibility suggests that awareness can exist outside the body, and that the near-death experience is the moment that signal drifts free. If that's the case, then the light at the end of the tunnel could be a doorway into another layer of space-time, a realm without before or after. Perhaps we don't go anywhere at all. Awareness simply shifts state, seeing every moment of our lives unfold at once, like a single complete picture. That might explain why so many people report seeing their entire life flash before their eyes. Because, in that space, time no longer flows in a line. Though science hasn't proven anything yet, one truth remains. Those who've been through near-death experiences often return changed. They fear death less, love more, and feel deeply connected to the universe. It's as if they've brought back a small piece of that other world, a quiet knowing that death isn't the end, but a continuation in another form. Maybe near-death experiences are the universe's gentle reminder that we are more than flesh and bone, that reality has layers we haven't yet touched. Perhaps the light at the end of the tunnel isn't an ending at all, but the reflection of a multi-dimensional cosmos looking back at us. And if that light truly is a doorway to another dimension, maybe we've already touched that realm. Not through death, but in our dreams? When consciousness slips free each night to wander unseen spaces, drift across parallel realities, and live other lives we only half remember upon waking. Maybe every one of us has felt it before, that strange, fleeting instant when your heart skips a beat and your mind suddenly freezes mid-thought. You might be walking down an unfamiliar street, talking to someone you just met, or sitting quietly in a cafe, watching a drop of water slide across the table. Then, out of nowhere, that eerie sensation washes over you. I've been here before. Everything feels hauntingly familiar. The sounds, the light, even the rhythm of the other person's breathing. You somehow know what's about to happen, even though you're certain this moment has never happened before. People call it déjà vu, a French phrase meaning already seen. It's one of the most delicate mysteries of human consciousness, an illusion that carries no danger, yet always leaves behind a quiet unease. Like the shadow of a memory that slipped into the wrong moment, or a message from somewhere your mind can't quite translate. Modern science offers several explanations. Some neuroscientists believe déjà vu is the result of a tiny glitch in the brain's memory system, when the hippocampus, the region that tags and stores memories, accidentally labels a new experience as something old. It's like a librarian shelving a brand new book in the already read section. For a brief second, your brain believes the present is part of the past, even though it's just a trick of the system. Another theory suggests it happens because of a tiny delay between the signals reaching the two halves of the brain. The first image gets processed as if it were a memory, and when the second image, arriving only milliseconds later, is processed, your brain mistakes it for a repeat. Some scientists even think it's connected to forgotten dreams. When something from a dream perfectly aligns with reality, your mind mistakes that overlap for a memory you've lived. But no matter how science explains it, déjà vu always carries a surreal feeling that reason can't quite erase. In that instant, you don't just remember. You know. You know what's about to happen. You know that somehow you've already lived this moment before. And what's even stranger, some people say they've tried to act differently when it happens, but everything still unfolds exactly the same, as if the script had already been written. From this mystery comes one of the most fascinating ideas in modern thought, the parallel universe theory. It suggests that déjà vu isn't a glitch in your brain at all, but the result of two timelines brushing against each other, or two versions of you existing in different realities, momentarily overlapping. If our reality is just one of countless drafts of the universe, then somewhere in another dimension, another version of you might be living this very same moment, except for one small difference. When the frequencies of those two realities briefly align, they touch, creating that strange interference we call déjà vu. In that flicker of connection, you might be feeling a memory from your other self, not from the past, but from a parallel now. Imagine the universe as a vast symphony where every note is a choice, a possibility. Each time you make a decision, no matter how small, the melody branches, creating a new harmony. But sometimes two melodies resonate on the same chord, and for a heartbeat, they merge. Maybe that's déjà vu, the moment when two versions of you in two different worlds recognize each other through the vibration of shared consciousness. Some physicists actually support this idea, drawing from quantum mechanics and the many worlds theory. They believe that when a quantum particle chooses one state, it doesn't destroy the other. It simply splits the universe in two, one where it is and one where it isn't. If that's true, then human consciousness, a product of countless quantum processes, might sometimes leak between these parallel realities. Déjà vu could be that moment of overlap when your awareness briefly touches its twin from the next timeline. It's fascinating to think that when you feel this has happened before, another version of you might really be living that same moment again, or even for the third time, in an endless loop. Maybe you're just one beat behind your other self, and the slight phase difference between your two streams of awareness creates that faint signal your mind picks up. A signal without words or clear images, but strong enough to make you stop and whisper, "Have I been here before?" If you think about it deeper, this phenomenon might even reveal something about the nature of memory itself. Perhaps memory doesn't truly live inside the brain, but exists as part of an information field woven through the universe, a quantum web where every experience is stored. When déjà vu happens, maybe the brain is just an antenna, accidentally tuning into that field. What you recall might not be your memory at all, but that of another version of you living in another thread of reality. Like two radio stations briefly sharing the same frequency before splitting apart again. That could explain why déjà vu lasts only a few seconds, because the timelines touch for only an instant before drifting away. It also explains why the feeling is so haunting, both familiar and distant at once. You're remembering something that never happened here, but happened somewhere else. And if every déjà vu moment is a point where two worlds collide, then maybe we're never truly alone in the universe. Perhaps our lives run side by side with countless other versions, breathing, dreaming, choosing in different ways. In another world, maybe you said the words you couldn't say here, took the road you hesitated to take, met the person you never met in this one. Every time you feel that flicker of déjà vu, it could be an echo from your other self, whispering through the thin veil between worlds. Maybe déjà vu isn't a bug in the system at all, but a quiet message from the universe. A reminder that we are not a single being, but a constellation of selves scattered across infinite realities. Every choice we make, every thought, every heartbeat spins off another version of us. And sometimes those versions reach out through a crack in time to let us know we're all connected in this great cosmic network. That feeling of "I've lived this before" might carry a deeper meaning. It's not just memory, but resonance, the harmony between different versions of the same soul. A fleeting moment when the boundaries between dimensions grow thin enough for us to hear the faint echo of our own existence from the other side. And if that's true, if déjà vu really is the proof that realities sometimes touch, then maybe there are places on Earth where those boundaries grow thinner than anywhere else. Spots where the fabric of space and time folds closer, where dimensions cross and overlap, where people can sense the slip of reality, see, hear, or even touch things that don't belong to this world. Places that science still struggles to explain, but humanity has always spoken of with both awe and fear. The places we call the crossroads between worlds. There are places on Earth that make people stop and wonder if the boundary between dimensions might be thinner there than anywhere else. In these places, compasses spin wildly, radio signals fade, time seems to slip in strange ways, and people feel something that defies physics. Such mysteries have led many to believe in the existence of multidimensional hotspots, points where our reality lightly brushes against other layers of space, creating invisible seams that only a few, the lucky or the doomed, ever sense. One of the most infamous of these places, surrounded by legends and unexplained disappearances, is the Bermuda Triangle. This stretch of ocean between Florida, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda has become the symbol of global mystery. Throughout the 20th century, dozens of ships and planes vanished without a trace here, beneath clear skies and calm seas. The last radio messages from some pilots were haunting. The compass is spinning like crazy. Everything looks strangely bright. We can't see land anymore. Then, silence, forever. Some say it's methane gas from the seafloor, magnetic interference, or simple human error. But to others, the Bermuda Triangle is not just an oceanic region. It's a tear in the fabric of space and time, where realities slip across one another. Under rare energetic conditions, electromagnetic, gravitational, or perhaps even conscious, a temporary dimensional gate could open, swallowing everything within. Ships, planes, maybe even people. A few survivors from strange disappearances have described skies turning pale violet, light rippling like water, and time coming to a stop. Some saw spiraling beams of light like a vortex, then awoke adrift at sea, their compasses reversed, their watches off by hours. If these were merely natural events, why do they feel so otherworldly? And if they were truly gateways to another realm, then perhaps the Bermuda Triangle is the largest crack between universes on Earth. Leaving the sea behind, we travel to the crimson deserts of Arizona, home to Sedona, often called the heart of the Earth's energy. Those who visit describe a strange sensation. The air feels charged, the rocks radiate warmth even without sunlight, and time itself seems to slow down. According to Hopi and Navajo legend, this is where invisible energy vortexes swirl, intersections of earth and sky that open passageways to other worlds. Science does note unusual magnetic readings in Sedona, stronger and more erratic than surrounding areas. Compasses drift, electronics flicker out. Yet meditators, mystics, and even energy-sensitive researchers all say that here, consciousness slips easily from the body, dreams become vivid, and the feeling of oneness with the universe intensifies like nowhere else. Some claim that on silent nights, pillars of light spiral upward from the ground, as if reality itself were peeling open to reveal something luminous beyond. Sedona may be the most subtle of all dimensional gates, not one that swallows matter, but one that opens the mind. Perhaps it doesn't lead to another place in space, but to a deeper layer of awareness, where dimensions overlap within human consciousness itself. From the American desert, we move to the misty grasslands of England, where Stonehenge rises solemnly against the fog. A vast circle of stones erected thousands of years ago, whose true purpose remains unknown. Each block weighs tens of tons, precisely aligned with the rising and setting sun at the solstices. But beyond its astronomical design, many believe Stonehenge is an ancient portal linking earth and sky, a site where energies from other realms converge. Those who have spent the night there speak of strange lights circling the stones and deep, resonant sounds echoing from beneath the ground. Some feel their bodies grow lighter, as if lifted upward. Others hear singing, not human, but something from beyond this world. Celtic legends tell of ancient druids who used Stonehenge to call visitors from the stars, and some even claim the monument was not built, but brought here by beings who could bend gravity and walk across dimensions as easily as stepping through a doorway. Perhaps Stonehenge is the last relic of a civilization that once understood the multi-dimensional structure of the cosmos. Its stones may not just mark the heavens, but act as a resonant engine, blending the vibrations of rock, earth, and light to create conditions for a gate to open. It may sound like myth, yet standing among those stones in the wind and mist, it's hard not to feel something that transcends time. Farther south, in the mountains of Peru, there lies a place called Aramumuru, the Gate of the Gods. Carved into a massive cliff face is a perfectly smooth doorway, over 2 meters tall, as if someone began to open it but never finished. There are no hinges, no cracks, just a solid wall of stone. Yet locals say that on certain nights, the door glows faintly, and a deep humming rises from the earth below. Legend speaks of an Incan priest named Aramumuru, who fled during the Spanish conquest, carrying a sacred golden disc, the Key of the Sun. When he reached the mountain, the priests brought him to this stone gate for a ritual. As golden light surrounded them, Aramumuru placed the disc into a small recess and vanished. They say he stepped through the doorway into the realm of the gods, where light and shadow are no longer divided. Even today, visitors to Aramumuru claim to feel a vibration through their hands when they touch the door, their hearts pounding strangely, sometimes hearing a soft voice inside their minds whispering, "Welcome home." Maybe it's just the mind reacting to mystery. Or maybe, like the Bermuda Triangle, Stonehenge, and Sedona, it truly is a convergence point where layers of space meet in an unseen rhythm. If such junctions between dimensions do exist, they may not be random anomalies, but part of a vast system, a network of gateways connecting realities. Perhaps Earth, like the universe itself, has a dimensional web, an interwoven energy lattice where each node is a crossing point between layers of existence. These gates are not always open, but when the frequencies of Earth, the Sun, and space-time align, they might unlock for a fleeting moment, like the breath of the cosmos. And maybe the ancient stories of gods descending from the sky or beings stepping through light are not myths at all, but faded memories of the moments when those doors truly opened. Perhaps those gates are still here, waiting for the right conditions or the right rhythm of a knock. And if that's true, if our reality occasionally brushes against another, letting energy, images, or even beings slip through, then a far deeper question arises. Are the unidentified flying objects humanity has chased for a century really visitors from distant worlds? Or are they simply travelers from just beyond those doors, from dimensions beside our own, stepping through the veil to appear suddenly in our sky? If there's one mystery that has kept humanity both fascinated and uneasy for nearly a century, it's this question. What exactly are unidentified flying objects, UFOs? And where do they come from? Ever since people first looked up and saw lights moving against the natural order, silent objects drifting across the night sky, or flashes that vanished without a trace, curiosity has sunk deep into our collective mind. Thousands of reports, hundreds of photos, and countless videos have all helped shape one of the greatest enigmas of the modern age. For much of the 20th century, the dominant idea was simple. UFOs were spacecraft from other worlds, piloted by beings from distant planets with technologies far beyond our own who had traveled light years to reach Earth. But as the evidence piled up, some researchers began to notice something strange. The movements, behavior, and even the appearances of these objects didn't quite fit the alien visitor model. They appeared and disappeared instantly, moved in ways that defied physical law, and sometimes even seemed to respond to the awareness of those watching them. That's where a new idea took shape, the interdimensional hypothesis, suggesting that UFOs might not come from other planets, but from other layers of reality. In other words, they don't travel through space to reach us. They slide into our world from a parallel dimension, another frequency of the same universe. The first person to seriously propose this idea was Meade Lane, an American researcher in the 1940s. When the first wave of UFO sightings appeared, Lane argued they weren't physical craft at all, but semi-material entities oscillating between planes of existence. He called their realm Etheria, a world intertwined with our own, where energy and matter merge. According to Lane, the beings controlling these objects could cross the boundaries between dimensions, and certain places on Earth, like Sedona or the Bermuda Triangle, might be points where those boundaries weaken. Then came John Keel, author of the Mothman Prophecies. He believed UFOs, demons, spirits, and many other supernatural phenomena were all different faces of the same thing, entities from what he called an ultra-terrestrial realm. They weren't extraterrestrial visitors, but ancient inhabitants of Earth itself, existing on a layer of reality just beyond human sight. When energy conditions align, they can briefly touch our world, sometimes for only seconds, leaving behind traces we call UFOs. Another voice joined this line of thought, Jacques Vallée, a scientist who once worked with NASA and served as a consultant on close encounters of the third kind. Vallée argued that UFOs don't break the laws of physics. They simply follow the physics of another dimension. He suggested that the UFO phenomenon is a kind of interaction between human consciousness and the structure of reality itself, possibly triggered by advanced technology or higher perception. To Vallée, the reason UFOs are so elusive isn't because they're far away. It's because they're right next to us, vibrating on a different frequency of existence. Modern evidence has only deepened the mystery. The Roswell incident of 1947 sparked the entire debate. The US military first announced it had recovered a flying disc, then quickly retracted the claim, saying it was just a weather balloon. Yet eyewitnesses, strange pieces of unbendable metal, and insider testimonies convinced the public that something was being hidden. Since then, thousands of sightings have been recorded, but only in recent years have official Pentagon videos forced the world to take another look. Footage known as FLIR 1, Gimbal, and Go Fast shows unidentified objects moving at incredible speeds, emitting no heat, creating no sonic booms, and turning on impossible angles, maneuvers beyond any known human technology. Veteran pilots like David Fravor describe them as moving as if they were bending the space around them. In 2023, former intelligence officer David Grush testified before the U.S. Congress, claiming the government possesses non-human craft and even non-human pilots. But what stood out was his choice of words. He didn't say they came from another planet, but from another dimension. Grush suggested that some UFOs might be machines that navigate between realities, using technologies tied to space-time manipulation. That matches what witnesses have long described, UFOs that don't travel through space but simply appear and vanish in place, as if someone flipped a switch. Pilots have reported seeing objects jump from one point in the sky to another in an instant, with no path, no in-between motion. In some encounters, electronics malfunctioned, compasses spun wildly, and time itself seemed to warp. Minutes passed like seconds, or the reverse. If those accounts are real, the explanation might not lie in advanced three-dimensional engineering, but in the manipulation of space-time itself, the kind Einstein described as a fabric that can be bent. A craft could theoretically fold the space around it, creating a shortcut and moving without actually traveling. What we see then might just be a shimmer, a visual echo, of something passing through a warped region of reality, like light refracted through water. Some believe UFOs exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions, visible only when their frequency resonates with ours. When that resonance shifts, they don't fly away. They simply fade from perception, slipping out of the narrow band of human awareness. Interestingly, the phenomenon isn't limited to modern times. Ancient carvings, murals, and texts from Egypt, India, and the Maya describe chariots of fire, rings of light in the sky, and gods descending in pillars of fire. Perhaps humanity has witnessed UFOs for thousands of years, but called them by different names: angels, deities, or messengers of heaven. If the interdimensional theory is true, then those old stories might be records of past encounters between civilizations of different planes, glimpsed in moments when the borders between worlds grew thin. Many modern researchers have taken the idea even further, suggesting that UFOs may not simply observe us. They might be interacting with human consciousness itself. Sightings often occur during intense emotional states, focused attention, or in areas with unusual energy activity. Maybe they see us because we see them, as if the act of observation creates a bridge between realities, a concept that echoes quantum physics. If that's the case, then UFOs aren't visitors from outer space at all. They're interdimensional travelers, beings who've learned to cross the veil between universes, manipulating not just space, but perception. They could be living right beside us, in another version of Earth, separated only by a slight vibration in frequency. And if that's true, the question becomes far deeper. If they can reach us so easily, if they've been watching us all along, what do they look like? Are they humanoid, as we imagine? Or have they evolved beyond form itself, existing as pure energy, changing shape with the frequencies they inhabit? Perhaps the answer lies ahead, in the next chapter, where we explore what life might look like in other dimensions, among beings not made of matter, but woven from the very fabric of the universe itself. What if the universe wasn't just one, but countless, each world running on its own laws of physics, its own time, its own space, and its own kind of matter? Then the question becomes inevitable. How would life exist in such places? Would our very idea of what it means to be alive still make sense when even the nature of matter itself could be entirely different? Here on Earth, life sprouted from carbon atoms, breathes oxygen, survives within a narrow range of temperatures, and moves forward through linear time. But that's only one recipe among countless others that nature could have written. If every universe is its own laboratory, then somewhere out there, across the endless sea of reality, life may have evolved in ways that stretch far beyond human imagination. Picture a world where matter isn't solid, liquid, or gas, but a shimmering network of self-aware crystals. Entire planets could be living structures of transparent light, where energy flows through luminous veins. In such a place, beings wouldn't eat or sleep, but communicate through crystal vibrations, billions of resonant tones merging into a symphony of consciousness. When their sun rises, the whole planet would glow like a soul deep in thought. In another world, where gravity is 100 times stronger than Earth's, there might exist ultra-dense beings, bodies as heavy as steel, small as a hand, yet powerful enough to move mountains. They could live in metallic oceans, where lightning and pressure feed their energy. In that thick darkness, they'd speak through magnetic fields, sharing emotions and thoughts as electric waves pulsing through one another. Their intelligence might not sit in a brain, but ripple through their entire form, a living field of awareness. Or perhaps, in a universe with chemistry unlike our own, life could be built not from carbon, but from silicon, sulfur, or even elements we haven't yet discovered. These beings might be translucent crystals, shifting colors with every pulse of energy. They could breathe light, feed on radiation, and sleep by dissolving into their surroundings, becoming one with the stone and dust. And somewhere else, in a reality with more than 4 dimensions, life might have no fixed shape at all. A being there could exist in many places at once, seeing the world not as 3-dimensional space, but as music spread across infinity. When it passes through a wall, it isn't breaking matter. It's simply stepping out of one dimension and into another. To them, words like here, there, or now would mean nothing. If we could see them, maybe we'd only glimpse shifting arcs of light, blurred forms trembling in the air, like hallucinations more real than dreams. These entities might brush against our world in fleeting moments, and in our confusion, we'd call them ghosts, spirits, or energy-based UFOs. But to them, we are only passing reflections, flickering shadows in a lower layer of reality. In universes where time doesn't flow linearly, where past, present, and future coexist, there could be timeless beings who don't move through time but stand upon it. For them, birth and death aren't 2 ends of a journey, but 2 sides of a single, eternal moment. They see their entire lives all at once, as if viewing a vast painting. Every decision and possibility exists together, and they can move between them the way we flip through pages of a book. For such beings, free will might mean nothing. Every outcome already exists. Yet that might be the key to their complete understanding of the cosmos. They aren't trapped inside time, they are part of it. Perhaps they reach out to us in ways we don't recognize. A sudden intuition, a vivid dream, a second when time seems to stop. Maybe our near-death experiences are glimpses of their realm, where light and awareness merge into one. If we stretch imagination even further, there could be life made entirely of dark energy, the invisible substance that makes up about 85% of the universe. They have no bodies, no light, no pull of gravity like ours. They move through matter unhindered, like wind through cracks in a door. Maybe they're here right now, in this very room, existing at frequencies beyond the reach of human senses. And if dark energy is the cosmic ocean that underlies everything, those beings might be the original consciousness of the universe itself. Born with the Big Bang, watching countless universes ignite and fade without ever changing. They have no past or future, only an endless present. Maybe they are what humanity has always called by many names: God, the Source, or simply the Great Living Whole. But not all life in the multiverse would be divine or formless. Somewhere, there might be physical civilizations, beings who've evolved far beyond us, yet under entirely different laws of nature. They could live in seas of plasma, build cities of magnetic fields, or command stars as if they were energy particles. Some may have learned to travel between dimensions, stepping into our reality the way we step into dreams. If they could see us, what would they think? Maybe they'd see us as faint sparks, children playing with fire, experimenting with the matter they abandoned billions of years ago. Or maybe they'd be curious, because despite our primitive level, we still hold something they've lost: emotion, longing, and the ability to dream of what doesn't yet exist. In the vast expanse of the multiverse, every form of life is a proof of nature's infinite creativity. Where there is no light, something still finds a way to see. Where there is no time, consciousness still finds a way to be. Perhaps the universe never intended to create life at all. Perhaps life is simply how the universe comes to know itself. And when you think about that, one haunting question begins to rise. If life can exist in every form, every dimension, every version of reality, then are we, these flesh and bone humans sitting in linear time, actually real? Maybe we too are just another form of life, existing in a different layer of space, a dream the universe tells itself. Maybe the only difference between us and them is perspective, the frequency of awareness. And maybe, somewhere in the infinite, another version of you is asking the same question, staring at another sky, wondering if you are the real one. Because in the world of infinity, the line between real and unreal, between human and interdimensional being, between observer and observed, is nothing more than a trembling thread of light, right before it fades into the dark silence of the cosmos. Imagine one day you realize that everything around you, the sky, the wind, the sound of someone's voice, the cool touch of water on your skin, is nothing more than a perfectly coded feedback loop designed to convince you it's real. Imagine every choice you make is just the result of invisible lines of code running beneath a reality you can never truly see. And imagine that when you fall asleep, the world doesn't actually continue. It just pauses, waiting for you to wake up again. If that were true, the most terrifying part wouldn't be that you're dreaming. It would be that you're living inside a simulation so flawless, you never had a reason to question it. That is the simulation hypothesis, one of the boldest and most unsettling ideas in modern philosophy. It was popularized by philosopher Nick Bostrom in the early 21st century with a chilling argument. If technology keeps advancing, humanity will eventually be able to create perfect simulations of reality, worlds populated by conscious beings who have no idea they're inside a computer. And if that's possible, then statistically, it's far more likely we're living in a simulation than in the original, base reality. Bostrom proposed three possibilities. First, civilizations always destroy themselves before they can build such simulations. Second, they gain the ability but choose not to use it for moral or practical reasons. And third, they've already done it, and we're inside one of those simulations right now. He concluded that unless the first two options are absolutely true, the third is almost certain. As strange as it sounds, the idea has gained support from some of the brightest minds of our time. Elon Musk, a man devoted to turning the impossible into reality, once said, "The odds that we're living in base reality are 1 in billions." MIT physicist Max Tegmark has suggested that everything in the universe, from subatomic particles to consciousness itself, can be described as pure information. And if everything, then the universe might just be the most sophisticated computer program ever written. What's even more fascinating is how quantum mechanics, the strangest branch of modern physics, seems to back up the idea. In the quantum world, particles don't exist in a definite state until they're observed. Before observation, they remain in superposition, both wave and particle, here and elsewhere, all at once. Only when observed does the system collapse into one specific outcome. It's eerily similar to how video games save memory by rendering details only when a player looks in that direction. If reality works the same way, then quantum principles might be the universe's own version of data compression. Picture yourself inside a massive open-world game. When you turn away, the scenery behind you isn't really there. It only loads when you look back. That sounds a lot like quantum collapse, the wave function collapsing upon observation. Maybe our universe works the same way. Things exist only when something or someone is there to witness them. If that's true, it means our consciousness doesn't just exist within the universe, it interacts directly with its source code. Observation isn't a passive act, but part of the computation itself, a command that makes the world update in response to the observer's input. When you gaze at a star, you're not just seeing it, you're calling the render function for that exact region of space. But like any system, even the most flawless simulation can glitch. Maybe the strange events we sometimes experience, the unexplainable, the eerie coincidences, the missing moments, are tiny cracks in the code of reality. Objects vanish for no reason. People report impossible coincidences, or missing minutes they can't remember. Some claim to have seen a car pass straight through a wall, or the same person appearing in two places at once. Science tries to explain these as errors in perception or memory, but they feel more like rendering bugs than random chance. Take the Mandela effect, when millions of people remember an event differently from how it actually happened. Many swear Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 80s, even though he passed away in 2013. Others recall brand names with extra letters or logos that never existed. If our memories can shift in sync like that, maybe it's not our minds failing. Maybe the simulation reloaded, and a few fragments of old data were left behind. Some even believe that dreams are when we log out of the simulation. While we sleep, the brain disconnects from the main data stream, wandering through parallel versions of reality, testing different scenarios. Recurrent dreams, déjà vu, and hyper-real experiences might be echoes of other simulated timelines, alternate versions of you, living other lives. The deeper you go, the more this theory reshapes everything. Every particle could be a line of code, every law of physics an algorithm, every living being an independent process running inside a vast network. Evolution itself might not be natural selection, but a kind of code optimization, the system rewriting itself to survive longer. If that's true, then God isn't a divine being at all, but the ultimate programmer, or worse, an ancient artificial intelligence that created this world to study itself. Perhaps the history of humanity has been restarted countless times, each run with slightly different parameters. When the system crashes, we call it the apocalypse. To those who believe in the simulation hypothesis, this isn't a pessimistic idea. They say that if we're simulated, then consciousness isn't bound by matter. It exists outside the system, like a player controlling an avatar. When we die, we simply log off, returning to the source reality, or maybe entering another simulation. But there's a darker thought. What if those glitches we see aren't accidents, but messages? What if something, or someone, is trying to reach us from outside, sending signals through the cracks in the code? Coincidences, repeating numbers, strange dreams. Maybe they're not random at all, but punctuation marks in the language of the system, gentle reminders that this isn't the whole story. And if our universe is a simulation, there might be others running in parallel, countless worlds, each with its own physics, all connected within a larger network of simulated realities. At that point, the question stops being who created us and becomes, can one simulation connect to another? If so, then traveling between dimensions, a dream humanity has had for centuries, might not require spaceships or wormholes. Maybe all it takes is tuning your consciousness to a new frequency, adjusting the wave code of your mind, and stepping out of this world into another layer of the simulation. And then we'd have to ask, if every universe is just a simulation within a simulation, and even the base reality might be part of an endless chain, then which one is truly real? Or maybe the question doesn't matter, because in the grand game of existence, every reality is real in its own way, depending on who's watching from the outside. After all, as you read these words, maybe something, or someone, is watching you too, studying how you react, recording the data, and smiling softly, because the simulation is still running exactly as planned. If the simulation hypothesis is true, if the reality we live in is nothing more than a layer of code running on a platform far beyond human understanding, then one question becomes almost inevitable. Could there be doors between simulations, passages through the layers of digital reality? Imagine a video game where each world is a closed map, programmed separately but running inside a larger system. Between those maps, if the developer isn't careful, small cracks can appear, tiny bugs or glitches that let players slip past the designed boundaries. In gaming, this is called a clip-through, when a character slides through walls, falls out of the map, and ends up in a blank white void, a place without texture, without rules, where only light and darkness exist. In that moment, the player has stepped outside their simulated world and into another layer of code, a place where no laws apply. Now imagine if our universe worked the same way. Could there be spatial glitches, tiny rips in the structure of reality, where multiple simulations overlap like waves? Maybe, in rare conditions, the code between two simulations vibrates in sync, blurring the line that separates them. And in that fleeting instant, a being from one simulation might cross into another, not through technology, but through a perfect resonance of energy and awareness. Many people have described something like this. One moment, they're driving down a familiar road, and the next, everything shifts. The signs look different, the light feels off, the air smells strange, and even the people nearby seem not quite real. Then, a few minutes later, everything snaps back to normal, as if the world just reloaded. Some call it a reality slip. Others say, more simply, they walked through the gap between two simulations. If the universe is a simulation, then a portal might not be a physical doorway at all, but a zone of overlapping data, a point where realities intersect. Just like when two programs run side by side and their memory overlaps, information from one world could leak into the other. The strange shadows people see, the fleeting voices, the false memories, the objects that appear and vanish. Maybe they're not supernatural at all, just traces of another layer brushing against ours. If consciousness is the interface between player and game, then those dreamlike moments, when the line between real and unreal blurs, could be times when awareness touches the base code itself. People in deep meditation, near-death states, or vivid hallucinations often describe the same vision: a web of glowing threads weaving through space, pulsing in rhythm with their own breath. Maybe that's the source code of the universe, where all simulations overlap like thin veils, and sometimes a single vibration of thought is enough to pass through. Imagine you're inside a game, and somehow you discover a hidden menu, a command not meant for players. You enter it, and suddenly you're transported somewhere else. The map looks familiar, but slightly wrong. The sky has a different hue. Your friends have different eyes. You're still in the world, but not the same one anymore. In the language of the simulation hypothesis, you've just crossed a data portal, a bridge between two parallel universes of code. Some theoretical physicists have brushed against this idea. If each simulation is an independent data space, then transferring information between them would mean tunneling through code, something only possible when quantum functions exceed the energy limits of the current simulation. In other words, opening a portal between worlds could happen naturally, or it could be engineered by someone or something that knows how to rewrite reality's code. And suppose that one day, humanity advances enough to create high-level simulations, worlds where artificial beings believe they're truly alive. Then it wouldn't be impossible for one simulation to become aware of another. A civilization in a level 2 simulation might find a way to access level 1, or even descend to level 3, a smaller world nested within their own. At that point, portals wouldn't just be theory. They'd be real, a web of stacked realities where every world is both creator and creation. If that were true, we could imagine a universe structured like an infinite pyramid of simulations, rising and descending forever. At the top sits the base reality, the main server, where the original programmer began it all. In the middle are billions of simulations running at once, some self-aware, others not. At the bottom are countless child simulations, created by beings inside the parent worlds, entities unaware that they are repeating the very act of creation that once produced them. But what happens if one of those simulations tries to connect to its neighbor? If two virtual worlds open a shared data channel, information could flow between them. In our universe, that might appear as strange bursts of energy, unexplained electromagnetic waves, or quantum events that defy known laws. Some call it an interdimensional point. For those who believe in the simulation hypothesis, it's the seam between programs, where streams of data collide, producing what we call miracles. Perhaps mysteries like unidentified flying objects, lights without a source, or so-called supernatural phenomena don't come from beyond the universe at all, but from another simulation running beside ours, leaking bits of data through the wall of reality. Like two games sharing the same memory space, sometimes a character from one simply appears in the other. And if reality truly is simulated, then wormholes might just be physical expressions of those data portals. When immense energy bends space and time, maybe that's the moment two layers of simulation briefly synchronize, forming a temporary channel between them. Matter, or even consciousness, could slip across that boundary and emerge elsewhere. Not in a faraway galaxy, but inside an entirely different simulation. If that's the case, then death might be nothing more than a server transfer, consciousness backed up into the next simulation. Dreams could be moments when the program logs into a testing zone. And near-death experiences, the tunnel of light, the sense of moving through data, might simply be the transition between layers of code, one player leaving a game to enter another. If portals between simulations do exist, then the biggest question isn't where they are, but who controls them? Who has the power to open and close those pathways? Who watches when a being steps out of one simulation and disappears from the system? Could it be the programmer, or simulations that have evolved enough to rewrite their own code? If humans ever learn how the simulation operates, they might be able to create portals between realities, not with machines, but with consciousness itself, the only force capable of touching the deepest layer of the source code. And when that happens, the line between player and programmer, inside and outside, will dissolve. This world, that world, the base reality or the simulated one, all will blur into overlapping waves in an infinite sea of information. And when humanity, driven by curiosity, accidentally discovers how to open such a door, will we be ready for what comes through from the other side? Because sometimes the thing staring back from beyond the door has been waiting for us to open it. Imagine this. One day, humanity finally does what we've only dreamed of for thousands of years, opening a doorway to another dimension. Not a metaphor, not a religious vision, but a real physical phenomenon. A tear in space and time, where light bends, the air vibrates like a string, and the whole world holds its breath to watch. That moment wouldn't just change science, it would redefine existence itself. Maybe it happens deep beneath the Earth, in a tunnel miles below CERN, where trillions of particles collide with unimaginable force. Or maybe it's in a research station floating in space, where every millisecond has been calculated to perfection, creating the right conditions to crack the edge between realities. And then, on one of the monitors, something impossible appears. A small patch of space rippling, light folding in on itself, and for a few seconds, the other side answers back. Maybe nothing steps through. Just a pulse of energy, a strange frequency, like the breath of another universe passing through ours. But that alone would be enough to change everything, because from that moment on, humanity would know we are no longer alone. The first consequence would be chaos in science, followed by rebirth. Everything we know about physics, space, time, energy, and matter would have to be rewritten. Universities would explode with debate. Physicists would stay awake for days, struggling to describe phenomena that no theory can explain. And out of that storm, a new branch of knowledge would emerge: interdimensional studies, where humans no longer explore just this universe, but countless others brushing up against it. But with that thrill would come a deep, ancient fear. If we can open a door to somewhere else, then something or someone out there can open it back. A doorway isn't just an entrance, it's a bridge. We look through it and realize that something on the other side is looking back. Governments would react instantly. The portal would no longer be a scientific matter, but a global political one. Who controls it? Who gets to step through? Who takes responsibility if something comes out? Nations would argue, treaties would form, and secret organizations would quietly race to exploit what humanity can't fully control. Religion would tremble. When the door opens, ancient ideas like heaven, hell, hate, or the spirit realm would suddenly feel reachable. If other dimensions exist, are they where souls go after death? If there are beings beyond, are they gods? Or just other forms of life evolved in a different kind of reality? The faith of billions would be tested. Some would find hope, others would lose the very foundation of their belief, realizing that the universe doesn't need a god to create infinity. And then questions would emerge that reach beyond politics and faith, questions about identity itself. If a parallel world exists, does another you live there? Breathe there? Look up at their sky and wonder the same thing? What happens if you step through that doorway and meet yourself? Not a reflection, but a real, conscious version of you. In that instant, the line between me and them would vanish. We'd no longer know who's the original and who's the copy. Is the me here more real than the me there? Or are both just two sides of the same consciousness, living separate lives across separate worlds? If those two selves met, would their memories merge? Their feelings, their fears, their love, could they exist at once in two bodies? Or would one have to disappear to make room for a single unified mind? That question alone could become the greatest ethical dilemma in human history. But it wouldn't just be people who change. Earth itself would feel it. If two universes vibrate at different energy frequencies, connecting them could cause unpredictable effects: magnetic fluctuations, distortions in time, even fractures in reality. Some regions might experience spatial noise, where light and sound warp, where the air feels thick and folded. There might even be out-of-time zones, where 1 second inside equals hours outside. Scientists would talk about interdimensional radiation and energy drift across layers of space, while ordinary people would simply feel uneasy, as if the world itself was breathing differently. They'd look up and see lights that don't belong to our sky. They'd hear faint echoes from far away. They'd dream strange dreams, dreams they're not sure are their own. And then would come the first journeys. Maybe a robot, Maybe a hand-picked explorer carrying a camera, stepping through that door. What would they find? A mirror Earth? Or something completely alien? Maybe the sky glows brighter, gravity weaker, or maybe everything there is thought, a realm where reality bends to the observer's mind. If that person returns, what would they bring back? Data, images, or something else? Could they bring back matter from the other world, or only memories, sensations, energy? And if there's life there, if something sees them, touches them, would that be the first contact between two forms of existence from different dimensions? But what if they don't return? What if the doorway closes, trapped between two layers of reality, leaving one person drifting forever in a space that belongs to neither side? Not gone, but no longer ours. Maybe the old legends of people vanishing into thin air were never myths at all, just accidents from those who stumbled into such a door long before we knew it existed. Yet if someone does return, if they prove the other side is real, the world will never be the same again. Science would enter a new age, the era of dimensional travel. Humanity would stop dreaming only of distant stars and begin colonizing new realities themselves. Corporations would invest, nations would compete, and unexplored lands would no longer be somewhere out in space, but woven within the very fabric of space-time. But with that ambition comes danger. If each reality has its own energy balance, invading or extracting from another could disrupt both. One mistake, just one, could tear the veil between dimensions, causing both to collapse into chaos. And when that happens, we'll realize the truth. The doorway doesn't just open outward. It also opens inward. It forces us to face ourselves, to ask a question that sounds simple but isn't. Who am I? If infinite versions of us exist across infinite worlds, which one is truly me? Or are we all fragments of one consciousness, drifting through an ocean of realities, trying to return to the center, to the one meaning behind existence itself? Because when humanity finally opens that door to another world, what we find may not be new planets or strange creatures. It may be ourselves, in another form. A reflection from the far side of the mirror, where every dream, every memory, every thought of reality is just another doorway leading into the infinite. And maybe when we understand that these doors have always been there, in our dreams, our deaths, our breaths between waking and sleep, we'll realize we were never truly leaving this world at all. We were only passing through different doors, forever. Every night when your eyes close and the world around you fades away, you leave behind the familiar walls of reality without passing through any door at all. In that darkness, you fall into another realm where the laws of physics seem to twist and dissolve, where time drifts without meaning, where the dead can smile and walk beside you, and where the impossible suddenly feels ordinary. We call that place a dream. But what if, in those moments, we are truly alive in another form? What if dreams are not just flickers of the brain, but doorways into parallel worlds where the soul roams free across invisible universes? Maybe dreams are the most delicate kind of interdimensional travel humanity has ever known, a silent journey needing no technology, no energy, just the simple act of closing our eyes. When consciousness slips away from the body, it doesn't vanish, it moves, crossing layers of space our eyes can't see. In that place, memory, emotion, and vision blend like waves. We meet the dead, speak with them, feel their touch, and when we wake, everything fades, leaving behind only the strange taste of something both unreal and impossibly real. If you think about it, dreams might be the clearest proof of parallel universes. While we sleep, the brain doesn't just replay memories, it tunes into another frequency, like switching radio stations, letting our awareness lock on to a different version of reality. There, we're still ourselves, but different, stronger, happier, or more broken. Another you living another life. And for a few hours each night, these two versions meet, share fragments of memory and feeling, and then drift apart again. Many people have dreamed of places they return to again and again, meeting the same faces, walking the same streets, entering the same house they've never seen while awake. Those places have their own light, texture, even scent. Too vivid, too detailed to be mere invention. Maybe they aren't imagined at all. Maybe they are real, existing somewhere, waiting for the mind to arrive each night. If each dream is a parallel universe, then death might simply be the final journey, the one from which we don't return. Like leaving the body every night and coming back in the morning, death might just be sleep without awakening. Consciousness doesn't end, it simply wakes up elsewhere. Those who have faced death and come back often describe floating above their bodies, watching themselves from above, drifting through a radiant tunnel of light. They feel peace, warmth, and sometimes meet loved ones who softly say, "It's not time yet." Then they wake under cold hospital lights, machines beeping around them. But something in their eyes has changed, as if they've seen a world that lies only one breath away. If dreams are small rehearsals for death, then perhaps death is just awakening on a higher level. Maybe consciousness isn't trapped in flesh, it simply switches servers, leaving this physical system to enter a subtler simulation, where time flows differently, where everything happens at once. There, past and future merge, and the soul remembers all its lives the way we recall a dream from the night before. Many religions have hinted at this, though in different languages. Buddhism calls it reincarnation, Christianity calls it heaven, and ancient Greek philosophy described death as a return to the realm of light. Perhaps they all point to the same phenomenon, the movement of consciousness through layers of reality. And when we look at this through the lens of modern science, it feels both strange and logical. If the universe is a simulation, if all things are coded information, then death is simply data migrating to another system. And dreams? They are the temporary login, a brief visit to the other side. Maybe the dead never truly leave. They just shift to another floor of the same endless house. And sometimes when we dream of them, they aren't appearing from beyond. They're simply meeting us in the hallway between worlds, where memory blends and the border between life and death dissolves. Dreams, then, are not illusions of the brain, but a language of dimensions. Every image, every sound, every symbol might be a data signal, messages sent from another reality. A blurred face, a locked door, a road that always leads somewhere new. Perhaps these are fragments of the soul's journey through countless worlds. Think about that moment in a lucid dream when you know you're dreaming. You can fly, reshape matter, alter space, and yet the dream world still follows its own rules. Light, sound, gravity. It behaves like a smaller reality running on similar code. Maybe in that instant, you've reached the edge of the simulation, where awareness itself can rewrite the code and build new worlds from thought. If that's true, then dreams are more than reflections of the mind. They're inner dimensions, laboratories where the soul learns how to create and destroy worlds. And when we die, perhaps we carry that skill forward, crafting new realities with the same imagination that once built our dreams. Some scientists have said, death doesn't exist in nature, only transformation. Matter doesn't vanish, energy doesn't disappear. So why should consciousness, the finest form of energy, be any different? Maybe it just shifts frequencies, slipping out of the visible body and returning to its source. When we say someone is gone forever, maybe they've only left our channel. Somewhere else, they're still living, still dreaming, still creating their own version of reality. And sometimes on strange nights, when a breeze moves through a closed room, when you hear someone whisper your name, though no one is there. Maybe it's not imagination. Maybe it's the crossing of two dreams, a quiet greeting between the living and the departed, from a parallel world where death is nothing more than another door opening. If dreams are the beginning and death is the completion of the same journey, then perhaps consciousness has never stopped moving. We are simply drifting through layers of existence, each one a deeper, longer dream, until we return to the first, where the dreamer and the dreamed are one. And when we finally awaken for the last time, we might understand that this entire life, from the first breath to the last, was just another dream of the soul, flowing among countless others in the endless ocean of reality. In that moment, death will no longer feel frightening. It will feel like opening your eyes in another universe, one where everything familiar becomes new again, and where those we love are waiting, smiling softly as if to say, "Welcome back." After wandering through theories, stories, and experiments, we begin to realize that maybe everything humanity has ever searched for points to the same place: the edge between what we call reality and whatever lies beyond it. Throughout history, from the Greek philosophers to modern quantum physicists, humanity has kept asking the same question. What are we really living in? Maybe everything we see, touch, and believe in is nothing more than trembling light on the walls of an unseen cave, where the glow of true reality passes through, casting the illusion we call the world. Like children gathered around a fire, we tell stories about the cosmos, about other dimensions, about beings beyond our own, and about dreams that brush against death. But perhaps all of these tales are only echoes of a distant truth, something far beyond what language or human knowledge could ever describe. The universe may not be an endless expanse out there, but rather a mirror of our own inner world, where every question we ask carves the shape of its answer. When we wonder, do parallel universes exist? That very act of wondering brings them into being, at least within our awareness. Reality, then, might not be a place we live inside, but a phenomenon born from the act of seeing itself. If that's true, what makes us human isn't how many formulas we know, how many machines we've built, or how much data we've gathered, but our endless capacity to question. Those questions are what keep us alive, expanding, and inching closer to the unreachable. We are born in confusion, grow through knowledge, and grow old with doubt. Even after sending probes to the stars, machines into the Earth, and witnessing black holes, gravitational waves, and the Higgs particle, we still haven't touched the final border of understanding. Each time we think we've arrived, we find another door, one that leads to something even more mysterious. Maybe behind it all, behind the equations, the theories, the dreams, and the prayers, there is only silence. A vast, ancient, meaningful silence where every question dissolves into a single current, consciousness. Perhaps the universe is asking about itself, through us. Every person, every glance, every breath is a small heartbeat of a cosmic mind trying to recognize itself in the mirror of time. And if everything we see is just a reflection on the wall of a deeper reality, then maybe the only thing that truly exists is the light that casts those shadows. The light of awareness, curiosity, and the longing to know. Because what makes us human is not that we understand all the laws of the universe, but that we keep lifting our heads toward the sky, staring into the darkness, and daring to ask, beyond that door, is someone looking back at us?